My roommates and I left an apartment with fleas, roaches, mice, and rotten food for workers to clean. Warning: some audiences may find this content disturbing. View at your own discretion. Welcome to the House of Reddit. Today, we share some recent r/confessions posted on Reddit. My roommates and I left an apartment with fleas, roaches, mice, and rotten food for workers to clean. A few years ago, my two roommates and I had to scramble to find an affordable 3-bedroom apartment and ended up in a shitty complex that was basically a half step above a freshman dorm. Some people we knew who lived there already warned us there was a roach problem, but we figured if we were clean and careful enough, we could keep it under control. We could not. The infestation went deep into the substructure of the complex. We called the complex's maintenance guys, who again and again pretended they'd never had anyone call about roaches, set a few traps and called it a day. After months of nothing working, washing dishes immediately, keeping the trash can outside, etc., we called an outside pest service, but still nothing changed. Around 9 months in, we also started noticing mice sneaking in through the baseboards, and my roommate's dog came down with a particularly violent case of fleas, something my roommate was admittedly slow to act on at first, but even after we got him groomed and on medication, he couldn't shake them. But the worst was the roaches. By the end of our lease, it was common to see about 30 German roaches when you walked into the kitchen if you looked hard enough, skittering across the sink, on the fridge door, around the oven. Sometimes they would line up on the edge of the stove to watch you cook. We, being young and inexperienced, weren't sure how to go about battling the complex to break our lease, and the rent was dirt cheap, so we stayed. As soon as we found a new place, 11 months later, we were so desperate to leave that we moved our beds and essential furniture over immediately. We all agreed to come back and clean a few weeks later, the day before the lease actually ended. We met back at the complex with trash bags and bleach, but as soon as we stepped inside we immediately had to run back out. In our rush to move to the new place, we had overlooked a handful of dirty dishes in the sink, which might have been bearable except it was August in the deep south, and the power had been disconnected for weeks. The smell was, maybe, the worst I have ever smelled in my life. Meanwhile our legs were on fire. Just stepping 3 feet inside had invited an army of fleas to attack our bare legs. If you looked closely you could see them leaping around the carpet like soda carbonation. The roaches had completely taken over the kitchen, swarming in plain sight. Mice had ripped through bags of dry food, strewing contents over the floor. We held our breaths and ran to each of our rooms to grab anything we'd left that was totally irreplaceable. I braved the kitchen and grabbed the worst of the dirty dishes, barely making it to the dumpster but not before I literally threw up into the grass. We locked the door and left, leaving behind hundreds of dollars worth of furniture and kitchen appliances. Obviously, we did not get a cent back of our security deposit. I don't feel bad about shirking our cleaning responsibilities to the complex, not after how flippantly they'd treated our complaints about the roaches, and continued to rent out the unit knowing there was such a violent infestation. But we should have remembered the remaining dishes and food, and taken better care of the dog's fleas. Sometimes, even years later, I lie awake feeling terrible about the workers who had to take out our furniture, rip up the carpet and discard any leftover rotten food. I'm almost certain they were hired out from another company unrelated to the complex, and even if they hadn't been, no one deserves to have stepped a foot inside the department. I messed with my sister's birth control. I have posted this on other subreddits and have been attacked for being an evil person. I do feel some guilt about it and know my sister would be weirded out if I told her. It worked out okay, but I wonder how I would have felt if it didn't. Here is what happened. I helped my kid sister, she was 23, just started grad school, become a mom when she really wanted to get pregnant but felt guilty about the timing being impractical. She had just gotten married that year and was still in school, but getting married gave her a bad case of baby fever. She told me she hated using condoms during her fertile days. She was using a fertility monitor, and would fantasize about the condom breaking to help her stay in the mood when they had sex. I asked her if she'd ever thought about just lying to him and telling him she's safe so she could enjoy her fantasy for real. She said it was really tempting, but she'd feel guilty the whole time and then worry about what if she got pregnant for real. Here's what I did. A few months after they were married, I was staying with them overnight at their apartment, and on an impulse I decided to be nosy and check her fertility monitor. I had bought it for her as a shower gift and it was just like mine. When I saw it was flashing red, predicting ovulation, I couldn't resist the chance. I switched hers with mine, which was safely green, meaning no protection needed for sex, and I made sure to empty their box of condoms in the trash just in case. I made sure they had a lot to drink that night, and her husband insisted on having green night sex with her when he saw my device showing green on her nightstand. She knew something had to be wrong because even drunk she knew where she was in her cycle. I could hear her through the wall protesting a little. They were both pretty loud and it was a tiny apartment. At first it was honey, we can't, not without a condom, and she tried to tell him the monitor was wrong. Then the temptation got the better of her. Soon the whole apartment was filled with the sounds of my sister very enthusiastically finally getting to enjoy her fantasy of no condom when I'm ovulating sex. The next morning they had another go at it, and she was glowing and all smiles at breakfast. When I switched the monitors back, I noticed she hadn't even taken her temperature that morning. I'm sure it's because she didn't want to risk that green light changing colors until she got one more chance to enjoy the opportunity. Mother Nature did the rest. It worked out great in the end. She was pretty worried about money and school at first when the reality hit her that she was actually pregnant. But she gave birth a little more than a year after they got married, and then after their oops they decided to go ahead and try for their second since she was taking time off from school anyway. I'd love to tell her how I was her fairy godmother who sprinkled her with baby dust but don't want to damage our relationship. She's really happy and like I said their second was planned, but I know she would have waited a few years to finish school otherwise. I hooked up with my first boss teen daughter. My first job was at a family-owned business and spent some 5 years there, going from young salesman to working directly with the owner at the head office. I got to meet most of his family, like his wife, son, parents, siblings and some cousins, and even spent nights at his home when I worked until very late. I also remember now that he told me about a child he had and that the child lived with his ex, but I didn't pry. After all, he was my boss and older than me, since I got that job right after leaving high school, so he wasn't really a friend. Still, he became a bit of a mentor to me and I left in good terms. That was like 7 or 8 years ago and I really liked him. Now, I am working in the public sector and got this weekend and Monday off due to overtime. I decided to check up on Tinder and other dating apps. I match up with this girl and spend some time talking, until I invite her over, pick her somewhere and spent the extended weekend together. She happens to be a couple of years younger but she was clearly more experienced than me and I liked her a lot. So I feel like this could be a thing, we are both single and hit it off, so why not? She had mentioned that she lived with her divorced mother and was going to apply to the same university I went to and everything. So we start talking about family and she mentions that her father is totally absent and only sends her cash. I only realized who it was when she said that he is the owner of a ex-retail company and I suddenly ask, oh, is he John Smith? Frankly, I know that she is a legal adult and everything but I feel really shitty now. I mentioned that I worked for him and it really soured her mood as well. I dropped her back home and she seems to have gotten over it but I don't want to bring this up with others yet. I will probably just delete this but I kind of need to vent out or I am gonna blow at work. I don't want to ghost her either but I feel bad and my friends are probably gonna act like it's a great thing to get it on with a pretty girl, regardless of how it will play out in the future. I'm cheating on my medical classes and I'm regretting it. Delete because I don't want this traced back to my actual life. I don't have any excuse. My home is not a bad one. I am engaged to the most wonderful and understanding man I have ever known. I took these medical classes so I could return all my parents have done for me and have them live a relaxing old age. I chose this because it beats trying to actually start up my own business considering I don't ever plan to make one. I actually thought that I wanted to become part of the medical field because it is kinda occupation that is looked highly upon. When I first started I realized that I actually knew jack shit about anything that has to do with any kind of medicine or human body. Since all my tests and quizzes are online this year I practically cheated on every single one of them and tried to get the best score I could without giving off any suspicion. My grades are below average and my professors are always on my ass about studying. The problem is I have a short attention span and I can't ever seem to actually focus. I suspected ADHD, but my doctors have yet to actually test my concerns about having it and instead just prescribe me more depression medication. Don't get me wrong. I've actually tried to study. I've written notes upon notes about what subjects we're on that I feel like I've practically written a textbook. Despite this, I've learned nothing. I tried all the study tips you can imagine. Study for 30 minutes and take a 15-minute break, then study again. Rewrite all of what we discussed in class. All the good stuff. I feel awful and feel like karma will catch up to me when they realize that I haven't actually been able to make the bare minimum of progress in my medical classes. I feel ashamed because my mother has single-handedly worked her butt off to provide food and a loving home despite her being in pain all the time because of an accident she was in a couple years back. My mother said that she would be the proudest mother in the world if I became a doctor or nurse, and I feel guilty because I can't say that I'm failing my class. I don't know who to go to without being judged or ratted out. I have clinical depression and anxiety, and it takes a toll on me whenever I get reminded of my terrible grades every day. I have no excuse. I feel like I should just drop out when I can, but I feel stuck. I can't let my mom down so hard like that. But I also cannot continue this catastrophic lie I'm living every day. It's eating at me and I can't seem to actually do anything about it because my professors don't allow anyone to retake any tests or correct past homework assignments. I'm scared. I need to seek help, but I don't want to be exposed for the liar I am. I'm afraid of intimate relationships. Today I went for a walk with my childhood best friend of 11 years. I'm 21, he's 22. We drifted the last year because we were just living different parts of our lives. He's been trying to get over a breakup with his ex that lasted for 3 years. Before that he was dating my best female friend. Nothing serious, lasted 2 weeks. It was nice going for a walk with him. We live near each other. We spent 2 hours together and we just talked about life. We've both been going through hard times. I kind of had a few mental breaks this year. Dealt with family problems and just my own mental health. Quit college, went a little crazy, but mindset is getting better. He was binging on drugs trying to avoid his emotions, but now he's learned from it. Also moving towards a better mindset. I was always in love with him growing up since we went to primary school together, hung out in the same group during high school. I was an ugly duckling growing up and I worked on my appearance because I wanted to get male attention. It worked. I've only been in one relationship and it lasted 1 month, me and the guy just not being compatible. I've always been a guy's gal just because I've had less problematic friendships with guys. I don't know, other romantic relationships have been short-lived flings. My first heartbreak, I guess, was my childhood best friend. Him not showing interest in me and going for my best friend hurt a lot, but at the time I wanted to be happy for them. And it's been like that each relationship he gets into. I'm happy for him and we drift apart, but deep down it still hurts a little even now. Back then it felt like he was choosing everyone but me. He did things with almost everyone in my female friend group. I didn't, because fuck that. It felt like he didn't even consider me and his option, and I think it's affected me a lot more than I think. I'm used to keeping my distance to people and am more comfortable not being the first priority. I'm sure he didn't intend to affect me that way, but I've been noticing as I've gotten older I sabotage and run away from a lot of relationships. Once someone starts getting close and I open up about things and they show signs of prioritizing me and it's going good for me, I become afraid of getting hurt or abandoned, so I push them away and leave because it makes me uncomfortable. It surprised me today that I still felt a lot of love for my friend, and since we're both single, of course the thought crossed my mind maybe we could work. He's tried to make a move on me drunk, but I don't think it counts. It's a bit gross and off-putting, the idea of being an option for sex, cause that's just not it. It's disrespectful in my opinion, honestly. But then again, I don't want to go there. I'd rather we stay friends and keep our good relationship. But for sure, I would eventually want to figure out how to stop sabotaging things for myself. I guess I'm still not over him even after all these years. If you enjoy this video, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. If you have any suggestions for future videos, please let us know in the comments below. Turn on the notifications to know when we post new videos. Thank you for coming to the House of Reddit.